Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a very exciting video, my spooky season TBR. So this TBR, I am aware, is it's a lot. And realistically, I'm not going to get them all done in October, so this is definitely just a, fall spooky TBR that will hopefully be completed by December 1st. I recently got back one of my old bookcases. So I'm in the process of a huge bookshelf reorganization. Video on that later, but just try to ignore my shelves right now. So in no particular order, here are some of the books that I want to read this month. First up is Sawkill Girls, and I have seen several people put this on their TBRs this month, so I know that I'm not alone in thinking that it will be spooky.
Spooky? Do you think I'm spooky?
This, I have heard, is reminiscent of Lord of the Flies. I just know it's some girl stuck on an island. And there's like a rumor of like this monster that lives there. So I'm very intrigued. I've had this book for a while and it's time to read it. Next we have The Haunting of Blackwood House by Darcy Coates. And this is a book that my friend Audrey's read and said it was fine. So I'm not expecting great things from this, but I'm expecting just an average spooky ghost story time. Look at that cover. If you're gonna read this book at all, it's gonna be in October, and so that's why I'm doing it. So next is a book that is a thriller, and I would have been reading it in November if it wasn't for the fact that I started it in July and I just want to finish it already. And that is Neverworld Wake. Neverworld Wake is the story of this group of teens that reunite. It's been like a year since they saw each other at high school graduation, and our main character decides to go with them to like this weird cabin house thing. So of course something's gonna go wrong. And within the first like 2 chapters, they are all in a car on this windy like mountain road, and they get hit by a car and they all die, I guess. And so Neverworld Wake is their limbo, and they're reliving the same day over and over again. And this weird old guy knocks on the door of their house that they were staying at and tells them that in order to kind of move past all this, they need to decide who's worthy of going back to the land of the living and just living out their lives as if nothing happened. But they all have to come to consensus on that. And so obviously every single one of the characters wants to be that one person. And so our main character is trying to kind of get them all together, which is really hard when it's like after 24 hours it resets. So you kind of have to have everyone in the same room, have this meaningful conversation all before the end of the day. And so that's what's happening here. I should have just read it like in 1 or 2 sittings. I think it would have been better, but it's fine, we're chilling. All right, next up is The Whisper Man by Alex North. This is a thriller that was, I think, all over BookTube last year. And there's some people who really like it, and there's some people who really don't. So I don't know where I'm gonna be. I'm pretty lenient with thrillers. There has to be something really bad about it for me to not finish it or for me to hate it, because I feel like I don't read them critically at all. I'm just here for, a good suspenseful time. But this story is about a father and his son, and they go to this new town that has like this dark past where the serial killer abducted children, and he would whisper outside their windows to like lure them to come outside. And then soon after they move there, a kid gets abducted, even though it's been like a long time since it last happened. And then the son in the story starts hearing whispers outside his window. It sounds very spooky. It's like the Pied Piper, but spooky? But the Pied Piper arguably is already spooky, because why does he want a bunch of kids following him around? That's weird. The last physical book I have that I want to read is this one, Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. If you watched my reading vlogs last October, you would know that I did start this a year ago and I never finished it. But I was having a good time with it. It was just one of those weird things that I don't know. I got distracted by other things. But this year is the year I'm gonna have to restart it. I mean, Agatha Christie, I think, yeah, it's a Poirot mystery. It's gonna be a good time. I love Agatha Christie, and I do remember that the inciting incident of the story was that this Halloween party was getting thrown, and then someone drowned while bobbing for apples. So, I mean, come on. It's the perfect book for this season. Everything else I basically found through Libby. I was just browsing through like the spooky horror audiobooks on Libby because I've in general been in an audiobook mood more recently than a physical reading book mood. So we'll start with the one that I've already started listening to, and that is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I think we all know the Netflix adaptation of this recently. I'm about 25% of the way through it, and nothing really spooky has happened yet, but the basic premise is that this scientist guy invites these people that he knows have had supernatural or paranormal experiences. He invites them to stay at this house so that he can like talk to them, and he's trying to prove the existence of supernatural things. It's been good so far. The next book I actually do have a copy of. Technically it's my husband's, but it's like 10 steps that way and I don't want to get up. But that is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I think I'm still gonna audiobook this even though I do have a physical copy, but I have just never read it. And I don't know. I've heard mixed things. I've heard it's really boring. But you know what? If I've read Frankenstein like 3 times and have never really enjoyed it, I'm gonna read Dracula at least once. I love vampires. I love, and I know because I've done some weird vampire research for an upcoming episode of the podcast I'm co-hosting. I like deep dove into the history of vampires, and I learned that Dracula was such a huge like cultural reset for vampires. So I want to know. I've seen the Bela Lugosi movie, which was so fun. I really liked it. It was, I mean, classic. So I need to read the book. All right, the next book that I want to read is Rosemary's Baby. I am already creeped out by all things pregnancy, babies. So this is going to be a time. I have not watched the movie. I do want to, I might do that this month though. It's just like one of those iconic films that I have never watched. But I thought, you know what, the audiobook is available right now. Let's go for it. This is about Rosemary and her husband, and I know that they moved to an apartment building that's supposedly like super haunted, and he's trying to get into the acting business. And then they decide, hey, let's have a kid. And her pregnancy's like really weird, and she's like craving raw meat, and she's supposed to be pregnant with the Antichrist. Let's go. Why not? Let's do it. Next up is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I have no idea if this book is any good or not, but I recently rewatched Practical Magic, the film, with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, and it flew to the top of my Halloween movie list. I think I don't know, I have seen it multiple times before, but for some reason I feel like just now that I'm older, I appreciate it so much more. And it's an amazing movie, and Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, I love Nicole Kidman. And the Midnight Margaritas. If there's nothing I can take us if there's nothing I can take us and Diane Wiest, and the early 2000s, late 90s Flavor.
That's right, I'm back. Woo! Hang on to your husbands, girls.
You cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong. So anyway, I was like, you know what? I should just read the book in October. Why not? So that's what we're doing. If you read it and hated it, please don't tell me, because I'm kind of excited to read it, but I am keeping my expectations low just because it's kind of suspicious that no one ever talks about it. But yeah, for all of these ones really that I found on Libby, I did not look up the rating on Goodreads. I'm just going off solely based on the fact that it sounded cool. I wouldn't be surprised if like half of the ones I read I end up hating because I did not do my research. So the next one that I want to read is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I keep hearing things about this, and I know I've seen some videos of people who really, really liked it. I don't know any specifics about it except the fact that it is a retelling, reimagining of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which, like I said, I've read I think 2 or 3 times. So I have context. Why not give it a shot? I really appreciate what Mary Shelley did with Frankenstein, just for the world in general, and what it says about science and things like that, and humankind. But for me, I think the concept of Frankenstein and the plot of Frankenstein is a lot more interesting than the actual, like, act of reading Frankenstein. So I'm excited to see a reimagining of it. I think it could use a reimagining. So the next one is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I heard about this through Kat from Paperback Dreams. The cover obviously is one of my favorite, like, spooky stories. It alludes to, like, the lady with the ribbon around her neck who, like, wore it her whole life, and then it turns out it was, like, holding her head onto her body. Classic. But I would love to read a short story collection of, like, creepy stories this season. All right, next up is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I am kind of mad at myself because I saw this book available on Libby, like, 3 or 4 months ago. Before the Netflix movie came out, I had never ever heard of it. And I read the synopsis and I was like, that sounds good. Let's try it. And I didn't. And then my friend Sarah texted me and said that she read it, like, basically in one sitting, and she's not a huge reader. And she was like, this was so good. And I'm excited for the Netflix thing, because I think on her channel, on Sarah Hawkinson's channel, she did, like, the book versus movie adaptation review. But I was, like, intrigued, because I was like, okay, someone I know who isn't a super avid reader absolutely loved this. You know, she's all about horror. So, yes. And then the adaptation came out. I heard it wasn't great. But because of the adaptation, now the book is, like, a super long wait. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it before the end of November, but it's definitely on my radar and it's on my TBR. Horrid. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year. And it's out now. And I need to read it. All I know is that it's, like, a contemporary horror that explores grief and mental illness. I'm not sure of, like, the actual plot, but I was really stoked about it, and I need to read it. Next is Turn of the Screw. I never really thought twice about Turn of the Screw. I never had to read it, but my husband has to read it for one of his classes, and I was proofreading an assignment that he had written about, like, the first 8 chapters of Turn of the Screw. So I am spoiled for the first 8 chapters, but I was intrigued. And then he told me that Emma Thompson reads the audiobook of it on Audible, and I'm like, okay, I gotta do it. And then I read that the second season of The Haunting of Hill House, well, it's not called that, you know what I mean, like the second anthology or whatever of that show is based on Turn of the Screw. So, weird coincidence there. Turn of the Screw just really came into my life in the last 2 weeks and was like, you need to read me, and so I'm listening. The other one is Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1. I've heard great things about this, and I don't know the plot of it, but I'm assuming it's kind of spooky, or at least, like, you know, it has spooky elements in it. I'm inferring that from the title as well as that cover photo, so gonna give that a shot as well. All right, second to last, we have Home Before Dark. First of all, this cover, gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Second of all, I haven't seen any reviews for this. I know some have been posted, I just haven't watched them, but I think I'm just gonna read it anyway. I don't really care. but I do know that it's like a ghosty mystery thing where I think like a family has like bad experiences at this like house that's haunted, and so they leave and then they write a book about it, and then like when the kid grows up, or maybe it's more than one kid, I don't know, but like when they grow up, they go back to that house to find out what actually went down. Is there any truth to it? All right, last but not least is One by One by Ruth Ware. That felt weird saying. One by Ruth Ware. This is just, all right, my camera just ran out of storage, so I had to pause to fix that. But One by Ruth Ware. This is obviously a thriller that could be read at any time, probably November or December, because the wait's really long right now. But I have read quite a few Ruth Ware books, and I've either liked them or somewhat liked them. So I don't know, why not? I'm really excited for the plot of this because I know that it takes place at like a fancy ski resort thing. And that sounds good to me. I love a good like thriller that takes place in an isolated spot. That's why I think I enjoyed The Woman in Cabin 10 so much, because it took place on a boat. So it's like, or a ship, I guess. I don't know the difference between boats and ships. But, you know, there's only so many places that the perpetrator can be when it's such a small place like that. So I'm excited for this one. That's my spooky TBR. Will I achieve it? I hope so. I hope to have read like 99% of these by December 1st. Let me know if you've read any of these or if any of these are also on your spooky TBR. I am so excited for this season. I have a lot of videos coming out in October that I'm really excited for and I think are really fun and festive. So I hope you guys are excited as well. And I will talk to you later. Bye!